Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hands-On channel, or welcome here if it's your first time. I appreciate you stopping by. I thought I'd do this video out in the garden here because I've got my bunnies behind me here. Hopefully you can see them moving around a little bit, and my garden, our best garden we've ever done this year, because we've had much better rainfall than ever before. And it seemed like a suitable, fitting place to do this video, because I wanted to tell you guys something. Last night as I was falling asleep, this is how it often happens for me. I don't know why this is, but oftentimes I'll be in there, just laying there, like almost having a mind download, it feels like I'm just learning this new thing. Or maybe it's my mind putting everything together that I have learned already. And I started thinking about, I'm like, what is the difference between, people like me and, there's some other people that are like this, but and the rest, all the rest of the people, it seems like, out there. I'm sure you guys feel this too. Like you kind of feel like that, our way of thinking is an old way of thinking, and it's antiquated and, obsolete or whatever, or it's being made obsolete, and we're being pushed into this corner, and we're not comfortable there. People that have seen better times, and mostly older people, when America's systems worked a lot better, we know that there's something terribly wrong with the system. But these other people, the younger generations that have never seen it, any better than this or any different than what they've seen growing up, they don't even realize there's something lacking there. So as I'm falling asleep last night, it suddenly hit me. One single word: authenticity. We're lacking authenticity all across the board here in the United States of America. Our culture, our people, our institutions, everything is lacking authenticity. So if we're going to throw out a word like authenticity, I'm going to go ahead and define it so we're all on the same page here. My definition and the dictionary's definition of authenticity is the quality or condition of being authentic, trustworthy, or genuine. And those are things that I try to be. I try to be a real person. I see a lot of people, especially on social media, that are doing these like almost cartoon character like intros to all their videos, or they'll have this big long, set of clips introing their video like they're actually a real TV production show or something, and it drives me nuts. Even a lot of the creators that I like have done this, where they're running like a little intro reel the first 30 seconds of their videos. I never do that. I just don't like it. It feels like it's fake. It feels fake to me. I just don't like that. I want to be a genuine, trustworthy, authentic source for you guys. That's why I speak my mind. And not to say that I never edit my videos, because I do make lots of mistakes and stuff when I'm making videos, and I do edit the videos so that they move along a little faster. But that's not the same thing as being a fake person. And so as I'm falling asleep last night, I just started thinking about all the different things that have lost their authenticity over the years. And so I wanted to run through this list with you guys, and maybe you guys could add 5 or 10 more things to my list here. I think there's 11 total, but let's just run through these, and I'll do a little example of each one. So my first one was the medical and pharmaceutical industries. Recently in a video, I talked about how I don't personally go to the doctor unless I'm dying, because I just don't trust them anymore, especially after the COVID-19 nonsense that we all had to live through, for 3 years there, still going on. They're still trying to get people to take vaccines, although the good news is that it's lower than it's ever been. But there are still people out there, in like a 7-day period, like 90,000 people are still getting vaccinated. And I can't believe there are still that many people that fell for this crap, this vaccine that didn't even, I got to be careful what I say there. I don't want to go into it. You guys know the story on the vaccine. If you're following the news and you're following the channel, there are a lot of very suspicious side effects, let's say, up to death, that have been going on since this whole thing came out. And maybe correlation and causation are two different things there, but I don't know. I'm very skeptical and suspicious. I never got the thing, and I'm glad, because I didn't want to have myocarditis or whatever, Guillain-Barré, or one of these other diseases that I can't even pronounce and they have no cure for. So for a long time, I've been suspicious of the medical and pharmaceutical industries in this country, because they obviously work hand in hand. One of my problems with my main primary care physician is every single time I have gone in there for a severe flu, or one time I had to have knee surgery and stuff like this. Now that was a little different, but unless it's surgery or they're going to refer you to a surgeon, most of the time the solution is throw pills at it, throw pharmaceuticals at it. So if nothing else, there is the appearance that the medical industry, the doctors and all this are working hand in hand to push the pharmaceutical industry. And, you know, I mean, it also makes sense that, you know, just common sense would tell you that if there are people out there that can make you sick with something, with a supposed medicine or a cure or a treatment or whatever you want to call it, and they can make you a lifelong customer, I mean, that's beneficial to them financially. So now what's the solution to that? I really don't know, but I don't trust it, and I try not to take pharmaceuticals or anything like that, especially things that I'm unsure about, because you guys see all the commercials on TV. They'll say, oh yeah, you know, take this new drug here, and they'll talk about, you know, 2 or 3 minutes worth of the good benefits and reasons you might take that drug, and then the whole last, you know, 3 minutes of the commercial, they're telling you about the side effects, nausea, diarrhea, you know, if you start having suicidal tendencies and all this, you know, contact your physician immediately, on and on and on, you know. Your nuts are going to fall off, whatever. Your tongue's going to rot out if you take this stuff, whatever. I mean, it's unbelievable, and yet people still trust it and take it. So I don't understand that. You know, I try to stay pharmaceutical free. I do take like supplements like turmeric, and occasionally I'll take, when I remember, I'll take like multivitamins and stuff like that. But I really don't need them, because you see behind me, at least in the spring and summer months, we have plenty of fresh, authentic nutrients coming into our body through our garden and through our meat that we're harvesting here in our property, and our eggs and things like that. So anyway, try to be authentic. That's what I'm saying. Next one that has totally lost all credibility and authenticity, especially since the COVID and all this. And really, honestly, it goes back way further than that, but I think most people recognized that there was a real problem with the news media during the COVID. And I was just looking it up. I was like, surely someone's made a list of all the fake news. And I found one from back in 2017. I think it was on the Daily Wire. It said 24 pieces of MSM fake news in 5 days. And again, this was posted in 2017. So you can imagine that if I'd have spent a little more time researching that, I'm sure I could have found hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of examples of how the mainstream media has lied to the American people. And yet somehow, for some reason, people keep watching the shit. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't get it. There's only a few news sources that I trust online. One of them, my number one source, is the Gateway Pundit. I also like Breitbart News. You know, the Daily Wire is a good one. Occasionally I'll go over and look at the Drudge Report. Not to say that they're necessarily trustworthy anymore, because they're not. They had a big turn back in, like, I don't know, right after Trump got elected, it seemed like, and the Drudge Report went far left compared to where they were in the past. So I don't trust them nearly as much as I used to, but I still do go check their site, and there just aren't very many good news sources that you can trust anymore. So be cautious about that. Be careful what you're putting into your mind, because much of it is just lies and examples of how we have lost our authenticity over the years. And again, there's no accountability. That's the worst part about it. The free press does not exist anymore, except for places like this, you know, and like people like Tucker Carlson and people like that have been fired. You know, Alex Jones, run off of the internet, run off of almost all the internet. He's got his own thing now, but you know, he got kicked off of YouTube. He was the pioneer of the cancel culture ban that went on all throughout, you know, when did that happen? I think that happened. I think Alex got banned like in 2018, 2019, something like that. So he was definitely the pioneer in that realm, and everyone else, all the other social media companies, used that as a point of reference, you know, as a blueprint, so that they could do the same thing to other people that have a conservative leaning viewpoint, or libertarian leaning, or even classical liberal leaning viewpoint. They don't want you questioning anything. They want you to take everything at face value. And so again, it baffles my brain why more people haven't disconnected from the fake news, but for whatever reason they still watch it. They must like watching all the fake people talk about all the fake stories. That's the only thing I can think of. I mean, maybe that's a distraction to them. I don't know. Let's look at some other things real quick here that are also have questionable authenticity for sure. The elections. I mean, after 2020, personally myself, I saw a lot of things that never got solved, never got, proper investigations done. And so since then, I have been very skeptical of not only our elections, but other elections that have gone on around the world. And so you'll remember a lot of people were getting banned, including me, and getting videos taken down and getting strikes for questioning the 2020 election results. You weren't allowed to question that. It's weird because every other election was totally fine. You could question 2016 and Trump's legitimacy in 2016, but not 2020 and Biden's legitimacy. Well, now all of a sudden they've pulled back on that. I don't know if YouTube's afraid of lawsuits or if they're trying to smoke out people, and just so they'll have them in a list, have them on their list somewhere, their government list. I don't know why they're doing it now, but they have done it. So you're allowed to talk about it again. And personally, I believe the 2020 election was stolen. There are many different things, and I don't want to make the whole video about that, but there are many different things to me that point to that fact. So anyway, a lot of people were behind that too, a lot of players. It wasn't just Biden, because Biden can't even tie his own shoes or wipe his own butt, as he said in that one clip where he's like, my butt's been wiped, whatever, right? So anyway, what an embarrassment. Also the midterms, that should have been a red wave. Something happened there. And what do I think happened? I think they stole it. That's what I think happened. And also we have to worry about future elections, like 2024 coming up pretty soon, right? Based on the past couple of elections, I don't have a lot of confidence in that it's going to be fair. And I mean, just so many things that come up. I don't want to get too derailed on that, but you guys remember they were blocking people from being able to look. The people that were supposed to observe the election were being blocked from being able to see what was going on behind the door. Missing ballots are showing up now. Even like a few weeks ago, I saw they found it wasn't a whole lot, but they found boxes and boxes of missing ballots that were from certain districts, red districts, that probably would have helped Trump to win the presidency and all this, So anyway, let's move on. What else is going on that's unauthentic, that you can't trust anymore? Well, honestly, I'm surprised they didn't have a picture of these guys. When you look up something that's totally unauthentic, it should be politicians. I mean, every politician, with a couple of exceptions. I like Rand Paul. Not sure about Ted Cruz anymore. There are a few other ones. I kind of like Matt Gaetz, but I'm not sure about him either. Again, MTG, I sort of like her, but, mainly because she's a fly in the ointment of the liberals. That's the main reason I like her. But, then you look at others like, Mitt Romney. I mean, come on, where's he from? Ohio or someplace? I don't remember where he's from. He's not in my state, but if he was in my state, I'd be lobbying. I honestly, I might even run for office against Mitt Romney, just because he needs to be primaried. He needs to be gone. And everyone else like him, Lindsey Graham, going out there and basically rattling the saber and trying to get us in World War III more and more and more. I mean, that guy's got to go. And you look at all these presidential candidates like Chris Christie. I mean, does anyone in the United States actually want to vote for Chris Christie? I mean, I can't think of a person that I would trust less, that would be less trustworthy or genuine than Chris Christie. I mean, maybe Hillary Clinton, she's one of those other ones. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, people like that. But my point is, he's of the same ilk. You can't trust those people. So politicians, I mean, that's kind of like, it goes without saying, they are not authentic. They haven't been for a long, long time. And I don't know, maybe they've never been authentic. I don't know, but I like to believe that, our early politicians actually had a mutual, no matter what side they were on, they had a mutual desire to make the United States a great place. Forget about what Trump said, make America great again, all that. Don't let that pollute your mind. But what I'm trying to say is that I believe even in the old days, even in my lifetime, it seemed like the Democrats, even though they're on the opposite side of the spectrum of me on every issue, it seemed like there was, you could look at their issues that they took issue with, and you could be like, I can see their point. Even though I don't agree with that, I can see their point, and I can understand why they might want that. Now, you can't even see, I mean, they're in a different freaking stratosphere. They're off the planet. you can't even see their point anymore. It's just like, no, that's just crazy. And I don't want to go into the depth on this, but you know, they're pushing now for normalizing pedophilia. And I mean, I don't agree with that at all. I think pedophiles need to go to the wood chipper. That's where they need to go. But anyway, let's move on. Things that are not authentic. Food. I mean, one of our basic needs and necessities to survive has been, you know, polluted or poisoned with pesticides, fertilizers. And, you know, not all fertilizers are bad, but, you know, the ones that are petroleum based are probably not good for long-term use. Let's just put it that way. And also GMOs and other modifications that are going on. You know, I mean, one of the things that scared me to death was years ago when I watched that study about Monsanto, and they were basically blending dragonfly DNA with corn or something like that, or soy or something like that, right? And I'm just like, no, that just sounds like playing God, and it sounds like it's a recipe for disaster. You know, it's one of those situations where it's like, it may have started out with the best of intentions, and what could possibly go wrong type of a deal, you know. Well, I mean, it could get into the rest, you know, how that corn stuff goes. I mean, if a farmer over here is growing his own, you know, maybe he's growing, you know, old school corn that's from old seed stock, you know, native United States corn. That's, what am I trying to say? I can't think of the name for it right now, but the old stock, you know, when you've got old seed stock and you can basically get seeds off of that and keep reproducing your stuff. Well, if the neighbor comes in and plants a whole field of Monsanto, then your stuff is going to be fertilized by those bees, and yours is going to turn over to the Monsanto variety. So again, it seems to me that GMOs and stuff like that is Pandora's box being opened up here. So that's not authentic food. Industrial scale farming is another one that we have to watch out for. That's basically the norm now. You don't see very many small farmers. It's mostly these big mega farms that are all owned by the same few companies, and that's dangerous. Monoculture crops is also another thing that I'm kind of against. I want to have a whole variety of different things going on my farm. That way, in case one thing fails, the other thing hopefully won't fail. And also they do the same thing with livestock. You'll see these big, you know, whatever farms that all they do is grow chickens, or all they do is grow, you know, hogs or whatever. And, you know, they typically, these industrial scale farms, a lot of these chicken farms especially, those chickens never see daylight. And to me, that is not authentic or natural or trustworthy or genuine. So these are things that, you know, you can fix some of this stuff by doing what we do. You know, grow your own meat as much as you can. You know, try not to eat a lot of foods that have been, you know, covered with preservatives and all this stuff, because I think these things, as we're finding out, you know, as time goes by, we're finding out that these things are causing like lifelong, you know, medical diseases and cancers that we can't even pronounce and don't want to learn how to pronounce. So best thing to do is just, you know, do like our forefathers did and, you know, eat natural things, eat authentic foods as much as you can. You know, no one's perfect. You're going to have some of that stuff, obviously, but you're not going to be able to just pull the plug and cut all that stuff out instantly. But try to eat as natural and organic as you possibly can. And, you know, watch out for imported foods. That's a big deal now with China. You know, they are one of those countries that they're not regulating their farmers. The farmers can, oftentimes they're running like hogs and chickens and all these other things and feeding the other animals the manure that come off of the, you know, the animal that was in there before. So it's not a good system, and you don't want to be buying meats and stuff that have been produced in conditions like that. And so I try to buy locally as much as possible, and also not only buy locally, when you can find these packages at the store or whatever, and that you know, oftentimes they'll say the origin, the country of origin, you know, stay away from that stuff that comes in from Mexico and things like that. You know, pick your own strawberries and tomatoes out in your yard, in your garden, grow your own corn, stuff like that, if you have the climate for that. And, you know, you'll be a lot better off, trust me. And if you can't do that, make sure you're buying from people that can do that for you, you know. So that's a good idea. Go to the farmers markets, get to know some local farmers, things like that, and make sure you're eating authentic, trustworthy, genuine food just the way God designed it to be eaten. Not this modified crap that's going to, who knows what it'll do 20 years from now to your system. So the next one that's I don't know if this is really in the classical definition of authenticity, but it certainly questions my trustworthiness of the water supply. I saw this article the other day that said hazardous forever chemicals are detected in nearly half of U.S. tap water. I mean, that's a big deal. And these are cancer-causing chemicals that they're forever chemicals. Once they're in your water and in your body, they're never coming out. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty big deal. You might want to be looking into, especially if you're in a city, because that's what this article, to summarize the article, it was city water that was the #1 problem, and also well water that were near city and industrial complexes and stuff like that. And big farmers is also the same deal. So if your neighbor is one of these big industrial farmers and you're getting runoff into your well that could be putting these forever chemicals in there, then you certainly need to be filtering that out or distilling it or whatever you have to do to make sure that that stuff doesn't get into your body. And also a lot of your waters that you're buying in bottles and stuff, they may have that stuff in it as well. And also just because of the plastic breaking down, I'm sure you guys know that if you have these water bottles and they sit out in the sun or get too hot, that stuff can leach out of the inside of the bottle. And guess what that stuff all does? All these, I think they were called PHPs if I'm remembering right, and these other forever chemicals that come off of plastics and stuff and fertilizers and things, these things are changing our basically our genders at birth. I'm trying to find the right way to say this, but a lot of people are saying that these plastic chemicals and stuff are the reason we're seeing all these gender confusion and all these other weird things that are going on, and the feminization of modern men and stuff like this is because of these chemicals. So if you want your kid to grow up to be a strapping young lad and a good proper man, then you probably ought to be sure and not allow them to have any of these things that could give them these forever chemicals, because again, that's forever. I don't know how you get that out of your body. I don't think you can. So watch out for that. When I saw that study, it scared me, because I thought, well, that's probably city water. And as I read the article, it said, no, it's actually some wells as well, but not all of them. Wells were less likely to have high levels of this chemical, and you were more likely in big urban areas. So that's another case for getting out of the city, where you can have clean water to drink right from the ground the way it's supposed to be. And of course, one of these days they're going to try to come out and put meters and stuff on our wells because of their UN water policies and because of the Clean Water Act and all this crap. They're going to try to control that more and more and more. And so for right now, in my state, we have no meters and no regulations. So as much electricity as I want to use to pump water, I can pump that water. And as far as I know, it's clean and fresh. And right now, we're not using any filters. But after seeing that article, I'm thinking maybe I ought to get like one of those reverse osmosis, or at very least, maybe I ought to get a countertop distiller so that I could distill my own water for drinking purposes. Or if we're going to like make tea or coffee or anything like that. I really don't drink coffee, but other things that we might be using for consuming in beverage form, we might want to use that distiller just to make sure that we're getting that crap out of there, those forever chemicals. And again, do your own research. I'm not sure that the distiller will actually remove all that stuff. I don't know. Again, it goes back to like microplastics and other stuff like that. So, I mean, when you live in a plastic world that's lacking authenticity, this is what you're going to end up with. I mean, I was just thinking about the automobiles and stuff. At least with an old car from the 50s and 60s and stuff, before the age of plastic, before it completely took over everything, those things would just dissolve into rust and turn back into, fertilizer basically for your yard or your garden or wherever you left that vehicle setting. As long as you got the oils and the other pollutants out of it and stuff. The majority of those old vehicles, you see them that have been sitting out there, they just rot away, rot to nothing, turn to dust. Well, microplastic kind of does the same thing, but it never goes away. It stays in your soil or in your body forever. So beware of that. Next up here, lacking authenticity in 2023. Financial institutions of every kind. So think banks. We saw all these bank collapses going on earlier this year. I guess that's stabilized a little bit, probably because the Fed's pumping them full of, freshly minted $100 bills. But think also like Enron. If you're old enough, you'll remember the big controversy of Enron, basically ripping people off, a Ponzi scheme. Another one that was more recent, FTX, with that guy Sam Bankman-Fried. And you know, you haven't heard anything else about that. That guy, he's still free as far as I can tell. He may be in like house arrest or whatever, but most of us wouldn't be extended that same level of freedom that he's got. Think of people like, you know, Fink over at BlackRock. And isn't it convenient that his name is Fink? I mean, the guy is just, he says now that we can't mention DEI anymore, or ESG. It was ESG. He said, we can't mention ESG anymore by name because now people have basically caught on to it. He didn't say we're going to stop doing it. He said we're going to stop talking about it because people know now that that's basically code for woke and ruining your company. You know, think about Bud Light and Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, now Ben & Jerry's, and all these Target, all these other companies that are basically losing billions and billions of dollars and having to fire people because they're using these ESG goals to ruin their companies, putting people, good people, out of work. I mean, bad deal. So, also Vanguard, etc. There's a whole bunch of them, State Street. There's a whole bunch of these big conglomerate companies that have basically been buying up the whole world, including farmland, so that they can do, you know, add forever chemicals and pesticides and fertilizers and do industrial scale farming right next to you and pollute your well. The monetary system, so the US dollar. Obviously, with no limits, money printing, combined with fiscal irresponsibility, that creates runaway inflation and eventually collapse of the US dollar. So that's not trustworthy or genuine. That's not authentic. Goods and services. This is a big one. And I didn't write anything down here because my head is entirely filled with all the different things that I've bought in the past that used to be good. You know, back in the 90s and stuff, you could go and buy a part from AutoZone or whatever, or any part store, and you knew it was going to be good out of the box. Now I make them test all those parts because most of them are imported from either China or Mexico or Vietnam or whatever. And a lot of times in those other countries, like China especially, they're using slave labor, young people, kids, whatever. Uyghurs, all this other stuff that's going on over in China, they still have slavery over there, and it's a terrible deal, but it's unreal. But just think about all the different goods and services we used to be able to get, and especially in the service industry. You know, I remember Bill Clinton saying we're going to switch over from a production industry to a service industry, right? And in a way we kind of did, but the problem is now there is no good service anymore. I can't think of the last time I went to any institution and actually had good service. Most of the people that I interact with, you know, on a retail level, when I go up to the store and I have questions or something like that, they're like the person from Idiocracy when he had to go to the hospital, and they're like sitting there looking at the thing, the cash register, and it has like all these different pictures on it of like sad face, happy face, you know, I don't know, that kind of stuff. If you've seen Idiocracy, you know what I'm talking about. But these people are brain dead. You go up there and you're like, hey, I need to know about this or that product, and they're just like, I don't know. And then there's no urgency. They don't care about anything. They're not in any kind of hurry. You feel like oftentimes you're disrupting their phone time. You know, you're coming up there and getting your stuff to check out or whatever, and you're bothering them. You're interrupting their downtime at work or whatever. And so it's a real problem, and it's very apparent. The goods and services world today, I mean, you just can't get products made like you used to be able to get them made. I mean, my advice to young people that are getting into homesteading and mechanic work and stuff like that is as much as possible, especially on manual tools, go out and buy old, genuine, made in the USA, American quality products. Now, on a lot of the stuff that has an engine or a motor or things like that, you may be forced to buy something newer. And just know this going into it, it's going to last a quarter of the time that the old ones would have. Whether that be a weed eater or a lawnmower or anything, they're all made out of plastic. They're all made out of junk. I mean, it's nothing. There, you know, I remember years ago, my first riding lawnmower I bought, it had a steel hood on it. You know, you couldn't break that thing. Every one I've had since has a plastic hood, and almost all of them break. My Cub Cadet hasn't broken yet because I'm real careful with it, but one of these days I know it's going to, and then I'm going to be that guy riding around in my yard with no hood on because I ain't buying a new one until I run the wheels off the thing, right? And, you know, as far as goods and services go, a lot of things aren't made to be worked on and serviced like they used to be. So just watch out when you're buying things. If you can, buy old stuff. I mean, there's a reason I still drive my 1993 Chevy pickup truck, and I have my 96 Suburban. My newest car in my whole fleet is my wife's car because she likes a little bit more luxury than I do. She's got that 2010 Lexus, but I don't want anything any newer than that. I mean, even that 2010 Lexus, to work on that thing, I have to take all this plastic garbage off the top just to even see the engine. It's just ridiculous, ridiculous. And maybe aesthetically, you know, they designed it to look nice under the hood and cover everything up, but I want to see the engine that I'm going to be working on. I want to be able to do visual inspections on that stuff to make sure oil's not pouring out or there's gas leaking out or whatever, right? And you can't even see anything in that Lexus without taking all these little plastic nubbins out, and you eventually break one because they get brittle and old and stuff like this. So anyway, the things we buy today are lacking authenticity. People, one of next to last category here, people are lacking authenticity. You've got body modifications of all different kinds, whether that be plastic surgery, you know, fake boobs, you know, fake asses, whatever, liposuction, you know, what's the one, that poison they put in their lips to swell it up, Botox, you know, on and on and on. And people are just, you know, lining up at the plastic surgery office to have that done. Tattoos. I mean, when I was a kid, you hardly ever saw anyone that had tattoos. You know, maybe one or two like Navy tattoos or, you know, U.S. Marine Corps or something like that. Now you see people all the time that are just totally sleeved up, and many times they go up their necks and stuff like this and on their face and stuff. And I'm like, man, if you got face and neck tattoos, there's a pretty good chance you've got mental issues as well. So I tend to stay away from people like that. And also, to me, it's a sign that they're lacking authenticity and they're trying to like make some sort of a monument or something. I don't know. I just don't believe in tattoos and piercings and body modifications and stuff like that. I believe you're supposed to be the way God made you to be. And so they're also blurring the lines of gender intentionally. Obviously, we could blame that on the microplastics and the, you know, the forever chemicals and stuff like this, and maybe that's part of it. But also, it's our own media that's pushing this stuff, and our own school systems, you know, the Department of Education pushing this stuff down our kids' throats. You know, we just got out of Pride Month. I mean, my God, you know, if we're going to have a month, shouldn't it be Independence Month, where we celebrate it for an entire month like it's the 4th of July every day for all of July? But we don't do that. But they get their whole month for that stuff to push their propaganda down our kids' throats. And so anyway, transhumanism, that's the next big one that we're going to be seeing more and more of in the future. People going and putting either RFID chips under their skin or in their forehead or whatever, or the new one with Neuralink with Elon Musk and others. It ain't just Elon Musk. There are others working on the same sort of technology where you'll be able to just think a thought, you know, like the Matrix, and download, you know, how to do jujitsu or how to fly a helicopter or whatever, right? I mean, that's the appeal of it. Is it all bad? I don't know. Maybe if they could help a blind man see, or you know, a deaf person hear, or a person that's paralyzed to walk again, maybe that's not bad. But that's not what they're going to use it for primarily. Primarily, it's going to be like people's cell phone, I'm afraid. Instead of cell phones, you're going to have the new Neuralink, you know, 2.0 put in or whatever. Every year, you're going to have to go in and have brain surgery done or whatever. And oops, yeah, sometimes people die. Oops, sorry, didn't work for you. You know, I mean, I don't know. I just can't believe people are this damn gullible and dumb to trust people this blindly, but they do. So that's some of the things that I'm watching out for. The last one I want to talk about here, and probably one of the most in your face these days, is the social media. I kind of mentioned it at the beginning of the video. These people that come out and they're just like overly enthusiastic and they're, hey guys, you know, and it's just, they're almost insane with the way they carry themselves and talk and stuff like this. You know, I'll give you one example. I like a lot of the stuff that the guy says, but I cannot stand his tone, his attitude, his fake enthusiasm. It's Russell Brand. I can't stand that guy's listening to that guy. Now, he says a lot of things that make a lot of sense, and he seems to be a classical liberal. That part I like, but I can't stand his fakery, his act that he's doing. And to me, that is one of the most blatant things that are going on. Now, there are some good people out there. You know, I like Wrangler Star. In fact, Wrangler Star is probably one of the main reasons that I do videos today, is that I was a Wrangler Star fan and I liked what he was doing, and I thought that was good stuff. There's others too, you know, MD Creekmore, I like him a lot. He seems to be authentic. Wrangler Star seems to be authentic. Alex Jones seems to be authentic. I bet if you went out and had a beer with Alex Jones, he's probably just the same as he is on the show. And it'd be a blast to hang out with the guy. You know, it's the same with me. I am this way. This is how I am. I'm not coming out here and putting on a fake act and pretending to be something that I'm not, because that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, your mama told you, just be yourself, you know? And that's what I try to do in this world, and think about things the right way. But yeah, social media, you look at all this stuff especially with the rise of AI, where people are able to do all these different filters and stuff. Like, I don't do Snapchat, but I've seen enough of these Snapchat filters where, you know, sometimes they're not actually like changing things on their facial appearance, but other times it's just like they're putting little cat ears on and these things. And I'm just like, I see adults doing this and I'm like, man, that's infantile for one thing. It's mostly women that do it, but it's also an indicator, I don't know, man. It's just a lack of authenticity. It's not the real deal. And I like the real deal, right? I like people with all their flaws. And when, you know, people modify and take that stuff out through a filter or whatever, that's not real. I mean, you can look at many different things. What do they call it? Being catfished or whatever, where, you know, some woman that's 400 pounds, she's putting up, you know, pictures on whatever, you know, website you're going to. And of course she looks like, you know, Halle Berry or Angelina Jolie or something like that in the pictures, and then you go meet her in real life and she's 400 pounds, you know. I mean, that goes on all the time. Or you're really unlucky and it's not even a she after all, and it's something else. You know, I mean, the sky's the limit. There is a lack of authenticity in our country. And this hit me like a download last night, and I wanted to share as much as I possibly could with you guys, and I want your feedback on this. I do videos like this to try to start a conversation with people, and hopefully you'll, as I'm saying these things about authenticity, it'll make you think, oh yeah, he's right. There's another one over here. That's another example that I didn't even think of in this video. So please let me know what you're thinking of. Am I right about this? Is that one of our #1 problems? We're lacking authenticity across the board. I think so. Anyway, look forward to reading your comments. I appreciate you tuning in. As always, I stand for liberty to the bitter end. I hope you do too.